Hello everyone, myself Shailender Kumar, Assistant Professor Jagannath University, Jaipur. Today I am going to discuss on the topic privatization. During the past few years, especially from the beginning of the last decade of the previous century, when liberalization took place, privatization has made deep inroads in all sectors. The broadcasting media is not an exception to this trend. With the changing needs of the audience, the need was felt to attract the listeners of radio. Until 1993, All India Radio was the only radio broadcaster in India, and private players were not permitted to broadcast and participate in radio broadcasting. In 1993, the government took the initial step in the privatization of this sector and permitted private FM radio operators to buy airtime block on all India Radio's FM channels in the cities of Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, and Goa, and develop programs, content, and sell advertising time for these block to advertisers. On July 6, 1999, the government announced the Phase 1 policy and permitted the greater participation by the private sector in the FM radio broadcasting business by allowing companies to bid for 108 radio channels in 40 cities under the Phase 1 policy. The government has announced bidding for an additional 338 radio channels in 91 cities. The privatization or entry of private players in the field of broadcasting has an impact in general. However, no serious studies appear to have been made in this respect. Hence, a need is felt to assess the impact of FM for the purpose of teaching. The introduction of frequency modulation in India has not only restricted the once dying airwaves, but the country may well be on the road of revival of radio's golden age. India seems at the threshold of true democratization of the airwaves. The radio profession is poised for a further leap toward reform with the advent of community radio, a development that may help the public realize the true potential of radio. In 1947, India had only six radio stations under a central government run structure. Now we look forward to 5,000 stations in more decentralized systems. Use of the airwaves, which is public property, must be regulated for its optimum use for public good for the greatest number. Broadcasting is a means of communication and therefore a medium of speech and statement. Hence, in a democratic policy, neither any private individual, institution, or organization nor any government can claim exclusive right over it. Our constitution also forbids monopoly either in the print or electronic media. This significant judgment by Supreme Court Justice P.R. Sawant and R. Mohan in February 1995 raised new hopes for radio's revival. This historic Supreme Court judgment kicked off a debate on privatization of the airwaves 2 years earlier in 1993. All India radio stations had begun allocating time slots for FM. In 1999, the government announced a new FM policy and invite private commercial broadcasters to apply for licenses. In all, 108 channels having 10 kilowatt radio transmitters were given licenses in 40 cities. Shortly after private broadcasting truly took off in India in 2001. In this first phase of radio privatization, there are now 185 FM relay stations in the country, of which 139 are run by the government owned All India Radio and 46 by semi and private broadcasters. And the government plans to raise the number. The initial license fees system made profit making difficult by the government plans to find a way to help the FM stations be commercially viable. There is discussion, for example, of opening up FM stations to foreign direct investment FDI. However, despite privatization, the image of radio remains that of an entertainment medium and not as a powerful communication tool. Because private broadcasters are still not allowed to air news. But this could change in the next phase of privatization. The community radio, the concept of community radio was behind the government's decision to allow the Indira Gandhi National Open University to operate 40 FM stations. Although the university has started only 16, however, its experience of providing distance education through radio has been quite productive. According to the Divesh Kishore of IGNOU's Department of Education, Research and Training, our experience has been very interesting. Through radio, students can communicate directly with their area counselor, and since its reach is about 70 square kilometers, they can almost meet in person. Commercial radio has the potential to be profitable. The revenue of commercial FM services in the country has shown rapid growth in the past 2 years out of the total budget for media advertising in India last year. Radio received a mid 2% or rupees 1500 billion, with FM getting rupees 500 million. But the revenue share of FM has been steadily growing for the last 5 years, as FM is now being perceived as a regional medium. In contrast, community radio is by and large a considered advertisement free because it is run by non-profit organizations and generates revenue primarily through donations. The task force on information and broadcasting set up for the 10th 5-year plan reported that community radio should be run as a public service much like the US Public Broadcasting Service PBS. But Rakesh Kakkar, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India's advisor on broadcasting, said recently that every 1 hour of radio programming should have 5 minutes of ad time so the broadcaster does not suffer losses. America, which has a lively, well developed privately owned radio system offering news, information, and entertainment options to serve diverse urban and rural needs, has had some influence, or FM or community radio broadcasting be the concept, framework, or programming. Now, the privatization policy 2000. In July 1999, the Government of India decided to privatize the FM radio sector in keeping with Supreme Court directions and commitments laid down in the ninth five-year plan. The Government of India offered licenses for a 10-year period, charging a license fee with a 15% annual hike. The losses caused by the irrationally high license fee gradually was the situation, and in June 2003, Go 92.5 FM sent a conditional notice to the Government of India threatening to close operations if it did not change its policies. Radio broadcasters, including Radio Mirchi, started pressuring the Government of India for a policy change, and on July 24, 2003, the Government of India constituted a committee, Radio Task Force, headed by Dr. Amit Mitra, General Secretary FICCI, to study the FM radio industry and make recommendations for change in the licensing. The policy guidelines in the second phase of FM privatization were seen as a major step in making FM radio viable. Financial viability was expected to allow radio stations to shift to more varied programming and hence deliver more choice and options to the Indian listener. Diverse program formats have not emerged because of a regulated environment and a huge payment and a huge payout to the government, said Steve England, owner of SW. Radio Meiji was quite optimistic about the new policy changes in the FM industry. In the change scenario, where license fee would be half the amount that was being paid earlier, Radio Mirchi expected to earn healthy profits. The company had also taken measures to reduce the ratio of its employee cost to total income from 99% in 2002 to 21% in 2005. Its administrative expenses for the same period were brought down from a high of 174% to 34%. In October 2005, it set off its accumulated losses against its share capital and securities premium account through a reduction in issued and paid up capital. Summary of this topic. Until 1993, All India Radio was the only radio broadcaster in India, and private players were not permitted to broadcast and participate in radio broadcasting. In 1993, the government took the initial step in the privatization of this sector and permitted private FM radio operators to buy airtime block on All India Radio's FM channels in the cities of Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, and Goa, and develop program content and sell advertising time for these blocks to advertisers. On July 6, 1999, the government announced the Phase 1 policy and permitted the greater participation by the private sector in the FM radio broadcasting business by allowing companies to bid for 108 radio channels in 40 cities under the Phase 1 policy. The government has announced bidding for an additional 338 radio channels in 91 cities. The privatization or entry of private players in the field of broadcasting has an impact in general. However, no serious studies appear to have been made in this respect. Hence, a need is felt to assess the impact of FM for the purpose of teaching. In July 1999, the Government of India decided to privatize the FM radio sector in keeping with Supreme Court directions and commitments laid down in the ninth five-year plan. The Government of India offered license for a 10-year period, charging a license fee period 15% annual hike. Thank you.